talking about communications in times of crisis, and in particular furloughing employees.
I think for me, the key and what's been missed in a lot of this is the kind of personal touch, and actually remembering that this is going to have a huge and significant impact on those individuals that you're furloughing. And therefore having conversation beforehand, rather than something just landing via email or a cold letter. So I think people have to some extent been a bit reactionary, understandably so, but have quickly jumped to, let's get out the letters, let's tell people what's going on.
We have been hearing these horror stories, even from businesses that we all know that we wouldn't expect to behave like that. I think the problem is the leaders, when they're in crisis, don't really think about the longer term implications, and they're trying to do it by the letter of the law.
But never ever underestimate a personal conversation on the telephone or a one-to-one on Zoom to talk through what furloughing is, what it means for them, and really importantly, the chance for them to ask you some questions and to know that there's an open door to you. It's not just a transaction that's done and finished and they're cast adrift.
I've had the experience of furloughing my team in the last couple of weeks, and it's certainly a real sort of challenging time, I think, for everybody, but we've talked really openly and I've been really transparent with the team about it. And I think that really helps them, because people, it's not a sudden shock. We've been talking about it, what it means, what would happen if we did it, when we might do it. Then when we came to talk about doing it, it's something then that people have got in their radar. And the letter then is just a confirmation.
I think there has been a real risk that businesses have ended up, again, focusing on the legislation and the guidelines. So if you take it completely by the letter of the law, people believe, in my opinion wrongly, that once staff are furloughed, that's it. They cannot work, and therefore you can't have any communication or contact with them. And clearly that is not an approach that I would endorse at all. It's about being pragmatic and savvy about this. So you can continue to have contact with your staff, you can keep in touch with them, actually have a duty to make sure that their well-being and their health, you're looking after them. Those don't disappear when they're furloughed. I think for me, it's quite simple if you think of it as not generating income. So not doing anything where they're asked to work for the business. But certainly you can still be doing some Zoom calls. You might want to do quizzes, for example.
And quite a lot of our clients are doing that, having daily or weekly check-ins with even with their furloughed people as well as their non-furloughed people.
It's really important. I've been having daily Zoom calls with my team every morning, furloughed or non-furloughed. I think that's really important. It's checking in on them, as you were saying, now making sure that their health and well-being, that they're feeling okay, but having one-to-one check-ins as well, so that you can really customize those communications for each individual. But I do think it's going to be really important to continue to develop that sense of team.
Because otherwise, when this is all lifted, how are they going to feel suddenly coming back into the workplace?
That's something I really worry about actually at the moment, is the team side of things, that because some people have been furloughed and some haven't, that is naturally creating a bit of a divide anyway. And I think as business owners and leaders, we've got to really embrace and bring those people together to keep them feeling a sense of team.
But I think being mindful that everybody has different responses and different behaviours to what's going on within the business. We've talked a bit around people who haven't been furloughed feeling guilty. And I don't think we should be creating divisions in our workforce. I think we should be trying to all come together at a difficult time.
It's challenging enough at the moment anyway, because we're working remotely. So communications have never been so important internally inside an organisation, however small you are. As a small organisations are actually probably struggling more than bigger organisations in some ways, because they're so unused to having to formally internally communicate. So it makes it even more important.
Well, I think there's a really interesting one that I'm not sure many people have thought around, and this will be your area of expertise, Rachel, but I think also Michelle's experience as being a business owner, is how do you make sure around your reputation and your visibility, is your business still open? And if so, are people aware of that? Have you been communicating that staff have been furloughed? And if so, what does that mean for your clients? But I also think it's really important to set expectations with your staff around what their message should be about being furloughed. So for example, if I email someone, I want to be a customer, I'm interested in their service, and the response I get is, I've been furloughed and I'm out of the office. What impact does that have on your potential business and your potential customers? I'd say quite significant. And I've seen that in a lot of examples, no signposting to anybody else or saying where I can go. And I think that's got a real potential to be quite damaging for businesses. And I think in communicating the furlough to staff, that is an area that businesses just haven't thought about. And again, understandably so. I'm not being overly critical. It's a difficult time for everyone. But I do think it's something to think about now. What's your agreed communication message around that?
Yes, definitely. Website and your email out of office, and also your social media, and what that looks like from an external point of view, because people do get an impression, and if they are trying to get in contact with your business or with a particular person, then they need to be able to be signposted to the right people in the business.
There's a lot of things to consider, I think, both from a retention of clients and a retention of employees. We don't get a lot of this furloughing and these communications right, that people will walk. We already are hearing of people who are not happy with how it's been handled, with how communications happened.
And also you need to look like you are open for business, if you are still open for business, because the longevity of the business is important for all of the staff, whether they're furloughed or not. They're all going to be wanting a job when this is all over.
So it's really important for me that communication is maintained, whatever way that may be, but regularly.
And managed from the top, not just expected to happen, which is what happens when you're in an office. It just happens. I'm finding this with my own team. You have to actually work out how you're going to communicate with each person, arrange one-to-ones or whatever. They're not furloughed at the moment, thankfully, but it's definitely, you need more structure than you would if with informal discussions in the office. And the informal discussions can go on your WhatsApp or whatever, and that isn't necessarily what you want.
When people, sometimes I think what happens in big times of change or in crisis is that when businesses think, well, there's nothing to communicate right now, we've got no updates, that no communication happens. And then before you know it, people are filling in those gaps with all sorts of stuff that isn't very helpful. So sometimes you're better off just communicating that there isn't actually anything extra to add, but you just give people that opportunity to have a voice and discuss what they already know, because it might be people have processed a bit more and have more questions anyway.